Thanks so much for coming along. We are going to cover off some basics today about the conference and the presentations, and answer any questions that you may have about presenting. No question is too big or small, and we will do our best. My name is Megan Pozzi. There's a number of familiar faces in here but I am on the editorial board for JANZSSA, the Journal of the Australian New Zealand Student Services Association. I'm also on the board of directors for ANZSSA and on the conference organising committee, and I had the great pleasure of leading all the call for abstracts and leading all the reviewing and putting all the programming together in all my free time. Nina is our wonderful JANZSSA Journal manager. Nina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, I don't want to steal your time here.
No.
Welcome everyone. So this is obviously it's a JANZSSA run webinar predominantly for you guys presenting at the conference, but we do always really encourage you to take the opportunity to translate all of these wonderful ideas and initiatives and perspectives that you've presented into a paper for JANZSSA or some sort of writing a contribution to the journal. So we do stay in touch with you along the way and help you in every way we can to do that.
Yeah, and Nina's really hit the nail on the head here. Our job is just to make you feel supported and confident, and we are really passionate about raising the profile of voices that non-traditional voices in academia and publishing. So we know often it's people with PhDs or with wonderful impressive titles in front of their names, but we know and recognise that there's great work happening everywhere, and we want to make time and space for those voices to be elevated and shared, because we all know that we do really good and important work, and we recognise the importance of grounding our work in evidence-based and reflective practice. So that's kind of the big why about why we put these things on. I would just like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands and waterways that I am on today. I work at the University of Southern Queensland. Today I am in beautiful Meanjin, Brisbane, on Turrbal and Yagara country. This always was, always will be Aboriginal land, and this land has never been ceded, and I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. I also want to acknowledge that these have always been places of learning and research and sharing and dialogue and community. So the plan, it's very simple. Structuring, practicing, what are you going to do afterwards? And then you can ask me any questions that you want. If you're like, this is also simple and obvious, great. I hope you come out of here feeling confident. That's the outcome for today. I want you to feel confident. I want you to feel like you can do this. I want you to feel like it's not a big, scary thing, especially for those who are presenting for the first time. And I want you to feel excited. So this question comes up all the time. How do I structure it? And people want sort of like a template. Probably a number of you are looking at this and similar to Jason, where it's like, I think I'm a bit of this and I think I'm a bit of that. And this is why I'm always very hesitant about saying follow this structure, or it's got to work for the presentation that you're doing. There are some core kind of elements that you're going to need to include, right? You're going to need to have some kind of compelling opening or some kind of introduction that draws the audience in, or sets the scene, or sets the context, right? And how you do that is up to you. So you might tell a story, you might do a video, you might have a rhetorical question, you might introduce some facts, you might introduce, you might try, Jackie and Jason, you both talked about the interesting policy context, so you might establish hands up if you might have some audience interaction. You might, think about, but the intent is at the beginning, you're going to open it in some way, right? You're going to set the scene, you're going to set the background, blah, blah. How you do that can be shaped by these. And then looking at all the different component parts, you can have some fun For me, it's fun. You can experiment, right? You can put them around. So it's like, let's, was it you who's doing with Esther, you might start at the end. This is where we are now. This is what it looks like. But let me tell you about how we got there, So that problem solution, you can sometimes think about chronologies. You can go forwards, you can go backwards, right? Here's the problem, here's the challenges. Very easy thing to think is like someone fell into a hole. That's the problem. How did they get out of the hole? Tell us how, what were all the things you tried? How did they get out of the, happily ever after kind of story? Then at the end, though, you'll see that what we're really looking for is the applications for everyone else. So what's the takeaway for the audience, right? So if you think about the sandwich, like you've got to set the scene, establish, but at the end, what's in it for me, right? That's the question you've got to answer because you've had a look at the program. There's 5 sessions on at a time. There's 300 people there. So law of averages, you're looking at having 30 to 60 people probably in your session at a time. They have chosen your session. That means they're interested in it for some reason. So they want a takeaway, right? How can they apply it in their own context? What did you learn? What would you do differently? Where are you taking this next? What other ideas did you have that you would have liked to try if you had more time? Yeah. So thinking about that takeaway. So they're the kind of two most important bits to really hit. And then how the way you structure the middle, totally up to you, right? And they're all the different parts, because some presentations you can see lend themselves more to that. They're more procedural, they're a bit quite linear. Some are messy, some are hard, some have policy implications, some are practical. Those people in the room doing Sparks, who's doing a Sparks session? Yes. So there's Sparks and oral presentation. So Sparks we have sort of promoted as being more interactive in nature and being more practically applied. So for the Sparks crew, think about what's that going to look like? Are you going to take us through a little activity? Are we going to have a little discussion in the middle of it? What are we going to do? Now, that doesn't mean that the oral presentation folk can't do that. But in the Sparks one, that is sort of the promise to the audience, that if they come to your session, they will get to kind of do something a bit more interactive and participatory, not just sitting there. All of the sessions have Q&A built into them. So make sure you allow time for Q&A, and there's guidelines around the timing on the website. And you can do questions. It doesn't have to be at the end. So you could stop as you go through and call for questions at any point in time. If you wanted to have like an interactive kind of question thing and read questions as they come up, then you could do that. There's presenter information on the website. So if you're doing an oral presentation, you have 25 minutes. So you can do 15 to 20 minutes of talk, 5 minutes of questions. Sparks sessions, you've got 25 minutes in total, and that includes all the interaction and that kind of thing. Yep, and then 5-minute changeover between sessions. Now, remember, structures, they're just there to support. This isn't supposed to be prescriptive. You can do it however you like, right? Whatever works for you, but hopefully this helps to, you to frame things up. And hopefully if you go back to your abstract will have a bit of a structure in it too. So why not just look at that and build it out? Make it easy on yourself. Bring your presentation along on a USB on the day. There will be a laptop in the room. So I know sometimes people like to present off their Macs and things like that. If you want to present off your own laptop, you'll need to make sure you bring all the cables, connectors, adapters, blah, blah, blah. Now, rehearsal. Very important. I used to be a drama teacher. Very important to do the rehearsals beforehand. So probably, just having gone to a lot of conferences before, I think it makes a big difference to the way, you can have the best content in the whole world, the best idea, but you've got to present it in a way that's organised, engaging, compelling, meaningful and that looks like you've put a bit of time and effort and thought into it, and that it's that you're not presenting it for the first time at the time that you're presenting it is my top tip. And I see lots of people nodding because we've all if you've been to a conference before, sometimes you have like concurrent session regret where you go into the room and you're like, oh gosh, this is so disorganized. I've picked the wrong session. I shouldn't. And then you feel bad and you're like, I can't leave this room. And then you hear the other room laughing and you're like, oh, they're in the good room. I'm in this. You don't want to be that person. So what I would say is, now, if you do nothing else, practice in conditions as close to the day as you can. Right. So you are going to be in a room that holds up to 60 people. The seats are going to be organized in like a lecture style. So they're going to be in rows. You're going to have a screen behind you. So if you can find a room like that at your university or TAFE or wherever it is you're working, and just go in there, even when it's empty. And top tip is you actually have to practice, like you actually have to stand up. So often when I see people like rehearsing or practicing, they have their script or their notes or their slides printed out and they go, and they're sitting down and they just whisper to themselves. If you are able to, you will be standing up. So on the rehearsal point, I would recommend that everyone stands up. And so I was saying before, actually talk out loud. You feel like an absolute goose while you're doing it because you're talking to a room with no one. But then you sort of realize, I'm waffling on there. That sounds weird. That doesn't flow nicely. And you sort of can practice it as often as you like, but until you get bored of it, and then you're like, oh, this isn't so scary, and then on the day you get all excited with the audience in the room. So speak out loud and stand up at bare minimum would be my top tips for rehearsing. People always ask, like, should I write my script out in full? Should I whatever? Up to you. Whatever works. It's, again, there's no hard and fast rules. One benefit of writing your script out in full, and even if you do like a voice to text situation, is that it helps if you want to publish it, if you've already got something written out in full. And we can talk to Nina about that later. Time yourself and make sure you can keep consistently to time. So again, if you've been to a conference before, you've all seen it. It's like, oh, I'm running out of time, because you get so excited and then you go, oh, that's that other bit. We forgot about that. And this, that, the other. And then people are like starting to look at their watch. They're like, I want to get to the next session. And people are walking out and it's like, oh, sorry, blah, blah, blah. And you don't want that to happen to you because you've got really wonderful, amazing work to share. So that's another benefit of rehearsing, is just timing yourself and making sure that you can consistently hit, the 20 minutes, 25 minutes, so that you and everyone else gets the maximum value out of the presentation. So again, timing yourself. This all seems like pretty straightforward, but the amount of times that it doesn't happen, you think, consistently keep to time. Oh, a tone that's confident and conversational. So like, you're the expert of your own content, right? You're the one that did it. So, sort of sit in that knowledge of like, yeah, I'm the one that did this. I'm the expert of this. So if you can avoid, reading off your script and coming across it, in a more natural kind of conversational way, that can be a helpful way of engaging the audience as well. So I hope that's fairly straightforward. This one, anticipate questions in advance, plan answers. So if you're listening to, yourself or someone else is reading, what are people likely going to ask you? You've got to be prepared for things to go. And, people often share their own, like, at my university, we blah, 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 blah. And they'll sort of ask you to try to comment on a context that you aren't familiar with, that you've never worked in. So that's another thing that comes up quite often. So trying to bring it back to owning and grounding in your own context. So you can practice a few little question starters like, that's not the context that I'm working in. The context I work in, is we're a regional university, 70% of our students are online, and first in family. So what was really important for us in that, and bring it back to what remembering you're the expert in your own practice and your own experience. If you don't know the answer, you don't have to pretend you know the answer. Just say, that's a really good question. I haven't thought about that. I'm going to take that one on notice, and maybe we can chat about it afterwards. Don't if you just feel like this is completely out of my depth, I haven't even thought about that. You can just acknowledge it. Don't feel under pressure to answer any questions. The other one you often get is like the questions that are actually comments. So you can just say, I'm not sure, like I'll take that comment. I'll take that comment on notice. Thanks. And I'll think about it. You don't have to try to necessarily respond if you don't want to. The other thing that I should say too is for those in the room, and I suspect you will do this anyway, and it goes without saying, but you know what they say about assuming trigger warnings are really important at the start of presentations as well. So just making sure that those in the room that are dealing with sensitive topics that might be distressing, just do as you would in your practice, be trauma informed and sensitive and mindful. But yeah, think about what questions you might ask. Like, what would you might be asked, what might you do again? Did you think about doing this? Why didn't you do it like that? One that I'm getting bored of, but it does come up a lot, is like, how did you have time? But how did you have time to do that? It's like, none of us have time, to do it. But we do it anyway. We get it done. So, but where did you find the time? So, that's that one. All right. So you've done your presentation. What are you going to do next? Right? Because actually the value of this comes in all the stuff that happens after, in, around the presentation, not in the presentation itself. So you're going to be connecting with each other, right? You're going to be talking to as many, don't hang out with people from your own uni. Go and hang out with, be a social butterfly, go and hang out with people. Look, we're all friends here now. We're all going to hang out with each other. There will be a conference app, so you'll be able to connect with others, and everyone will wear name tags. So you're chatting, you're meeting people, you're connecting, you're sending emails, straight up, quickly afterwards. It can be really, really handy if you've got some kind of like collateral. So maybe you have a brochure for your, or like a flyer for the program that you did, or a one pager, or a QR code, something that people can kind of take away and go, oh, that's right, Sharon, they did this, really good thing. Let me find, oh, they sent me this thing. Oh, I've got this handout with your contact details on it. So doing that kind of networking bit. If you're on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a great place to keep up, share, meet like-minded others. It's such a fun, awesome, amazing conference, all because it's full of wonderful people like you. So make the most of it. Now, my rule of thumb with anything like this is you've got to make it work 3 times. You put in a lot of time and effort. Writing your abstract, preparing your presentation. This is one, right? Conference presentation. You've got one thing out of this right now. How are you going to make it work for you 3 times? So are you going to submit to ANZSSA? We've got blogs you can do, which is like very low sort of barrier to entry. They're about 600 to 1,000 words, very easy to write up. You might write a practice report. Yeah. If you're not quite ready to come to the dizzying heights of ANZSSA with Nina and I, have you done it in an internal newsletter? Have you submitted this work for a learning and teaching award? Yeah. Have you written it up for a report to some kind of committee or, board at your university? So what are you going to do with it, right? Because it's just such a shame that you put in so much work, it gets heard by 50 to 60 people. And then, so work smart with these kinds of things, because the work is valuable. It's already had some review, right, through the peer review process. You will get more thoughtful feedback through the Q&A and through discussions with others. So what are you going to do with it? So that's the thing you've got to keep in the back of your mind after the presentation. After the conference, not me, but one of our other editorial board members will be running another PD about how to turn your conference presentation into a publication for JANZSSA. Come along. That doesn't mean you're committing to anything. Just come along and just hear about it, hear how to do it. I would really encourage you to do that. And you can keep building on this work. So, this is sort of stage one. You're submitting now. As whatever the work is that develops, you can use that for a future conference. Yeah, as it evolves. We accept submissions to JANZSSA, the journal, all year round, so you don't have to wait for a deadline. You can just submit whenever you're ready. There's no time pressure. Thanks, everyone.